Hey, it's Anthony, howtogetintodramaschool.com. Hope you guys are having an awesome day. It's going to get even better when you listen to this podcast because we've got an awesome guest. Her name is Gabii Torres. She's a current Juilliard student. She's a friend of mine. She's from Mexico. She went to an undergraduate program at the University of Texas in El Paso and then on to Juilliard. And what's really special about her, besides obviously she's just an awesome talent and an awesome human, but she has a great wisdom. She is going to share with you some awesome just realities and really great ways to think about your audition. We all know that we get sometimes insecure, we have doubts. She talks a lot about that in her story. So this is Gabii Torres on how to get into drama school. Enjoy. Okay. So, Gabii, my friend, introduce yourself. Where are you from? Where are you now? And tell us a couple of things maybe interesting about yourself.
Well, my name is Gabii Torres, Gabriela Torres Sepulveda, if you want to use the Mexican name. I was born in El Paso, Texas, which is border city with Juarez, Mexico. And I was basically born in El Paso, raised in Juarez, and then I did my education in El Paso, Texas. So whenever people ask me where am I from, it's really hard to decide whether it's United States or Mexico. So I'm always like, I'm from both. From this current situation, I tend to say Mexico. But yes,
Are you an international Juilliard student?
Sorry, what?
Well, would you say you're an international Juilliard student?
I think, yes, mindset-wise, I think I'm very much in, Mexican culture right now, so it does feel very international at times, and considering that Spanish is my native language, it very much feels like it's just, very international in that sense. But I'm a Juilliard right now. I'm doing my second year M.F.A. I did my B.F.A. in acting, theater performance as well. And I've been here in New York for about to finish my second year. Yeah.
Awesome. How are you liking it?
It's really amazing, and it's exhausting how much you grow, but it's also very exciting. So it's this very weird combination of, I'm really happy because I can see the growth, not only in myself, but amongst the people I share, the classes with.
Absolutely.
And also, I am so excited for the year to end so I can get some rest. But, no, it's going, it's fantastic. You're surrounded by a bunch of people who really know what they're doing, and really, they also learn how to make you the best you can be. So it's very individualized in that way, which is really great.
Nice. So let me ask you a couple of differences. You're someone who went to a BFA program, and if you wouldn't mind sharing where you went, and I want to ask you, what is really the difference that you've noticed from that program to where you are now at Juilliard? Some of the main differences. Obviously some students are considering applying to smaller programs or maybe less intense programs, as well as more rigorous programs. And so highlight, as a person who's been at both, what are those differences and your personal perspective?
So I did my BFA in theater performance, and I did it at University of Texas at El Paso, which is really funny because UTEP is known for their engineering program, not at all for their theater program. So it's a very, very small theater program that doesn't have a lot of students. But what I really liked about UTEP, which is the reason why I stayed and never transferred, is because since there were not a lot of students, the training was very focused on who you were as an artist and who you wanted to become in your growth. And also something really cool about that was that you can, because in certain colleges you have to wait till you're a senior or whatever to be in the main stage productions.
Right.
And UTEP offered you the opportunity to do that from the get-go. So it was great to just be in a full production, being a freshman and not really knowing what I'm doing and all that stuff. Some of the differences that I'm noticing now, it's UTEP is mainly, I should say, 80% Latino community because it's in the border. So there's a lot of Latino community. And that's one of the big differences that I come here to New York, and there's nobody from Mexico, so there's no one I can share that culture with. But it's also the material that you do is also very different, which in a way it's really exciting, because you did all your BFA and you did all these Latino playwrights and for the Latino community, and then come here and you're trying to learn about the classics and people you've never heard about, or you just training yourself in a very, very different cultural sense, which I think it's really amazing, especially if you want to be an actor, because you learn all these different ways that people think and how they relate to each other, which is also great. And then with Juilliard, they're very specific about their speech and voice program, which is something that I really needed. There is something about like the way that they make you use your voice and own the space, and just encourage you to not be afraid of how powerful you can be, which is really encouraging and exciting. Another difference is like it depends on what you do when you're doing your BFA or whatever college you do. It's like Juilliard, it's much more focused in just acting, which can be a great thing and it can be an exhausting thing. But for example, at UTEP, I had to do, my basics, because it was a public university. So you had to do your basics, and then you had to do work study, and I would work at the admissions office, and then I would go to rehearsal at night. So this is like very different.
Totally.
It was all over the place. Yeah. And then, for me, it's amazing that I come to school and I know that every day I'm doing something that has to do with acting. So I think in that way, you're constantly surrounded by it. So there's nothing that you learn that's just useless or pointless. You can always take something, which is really not a chance. You don't get to do that very much in other universities, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we've been trying to highlight for folks on our podcast and stuff is like, they are respectable in both their own right. Certain people are looking for that super rigorous program, and others are really looking for more of a college type experience. And something like Juilliard and others that are major BFA programs are not that. And so but that doesn't mean that you still can't get good acting training at, let's say, like a BA program or a smaller BFA program. It's just you're going to have to deal with a balance of academics and training. And because of that, literally your time is just, split. And so you can't necessarily go as deep as you can at Juilliard. Sometimes it's like mind-boggling how deep we went. We were talking the other day about the energy work. Like, nobody's ever done energy work. Crazy. So
you're a freaking Harry Potter or something.
Right, exactly. Some magical stuff.
No, yeah, I do have to say that for me, I don't regret going to like a public university, because just the fact that I could also learn things that were not at all related to acting was helpful to acting in some ways. Like psychology was freaking interesting, which is not something that you get, in a conservatory, or philosophy, or even math, like things like that it's just like you exercise your brain in a very different way, which is really good. I've always been kind of a, I don't even know what you call this in English, but after I was done with like my class, then I would go to rehearsal, and then I would just go to bed. So I was never like the party person.
Wait, what do you call it in Spanish?
It's like, what's the word in Spanish? It's like, in Spanish it's called like nerd and stuff, like nerd, but I don't like using that word. I don't know. I guess boring would be a word. It's just like you would just like go to like do your homework and then go to bed and then start all over again. Obviously, people who had much more interesting lives did not do that, and that is regardless of where you are. I think you can find your private life outside of school, and people manage to. But I think that if you want that college experience, I really do think it's where you would find that experience wherever you make it. Like you make your own experience in a way.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that of the student as well. You make your own education. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you go to Juilliard, it doesn't matter if you go to a public school. You're always going to learn what you want to learn and what you want to focus on. It's not about, the fanciness or I mean, of course, the teachers have to do a lot with it too, but it's how you want to learn and how you want to put that in your body that it's going to make you the artist, actor you want to be.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's great. And I think that the curriculum is perhaps different, but like, you know, you are a big part of that. And, you know, how you want to have your college experience is, you know, you can have it the way you want it in many ways. So let's talk about how you got into drama school. Let's talk about UTEP first, University of Texas at El Paso, and then we'll talk about Juilliard. But let's say UTEP. What was the requirements? How did you have to audition to get in there? And if so, like, what monologues did you do? And how did you kind of get into that school?
Okay, so it's actually really fun. Doesn't have those crazy requirements that you have to audition and you have to do all these things to get in. And when I was trying to figure out where I was going to do my degree, I really did not want to be at UTEP. I was like, I will not come to this school. I just want to get out of El Paso. I want to get out of here. And my mom, you know, she was like, no, you're not. You are staying for at least for a year. Just stay for a year.
She made a deal with you.
Yeah. And at first I was very resistant about it, but I'm going to be really honest with you. I started looking like at other programs, and then I think I even looked at Juilliard or just like, you know, all these crazy schools and all that stuff. And the way that they describe it on the internet, which is, you know, in some ways true of like how impossible it is to get in these programs and like the amount of auditions they have to go through and the model. And I just got very overwhelmed. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I think maybe I should just stay at UTEP for a year, figure out if this is really what I want to do, and then go from there. And at first, I didn't even know if that was what I wanted to do. My grandfather was the one who was like, he gave me really good advice. Because I was like, okay, what's best? To do something that you know will bring you money, but you're not very passionate about. Or doing something you're extremely passionate about, but it's not certain, right? And then, you know, he was like, well, life is never certain, so you might as well do something that you love. And I was like, you're very wise, Grandpa. And
nice call, Grandpa.
Yeah. He's the reason why I'm here. And so UTEP, it was really easy. You just were like, I want to do theater performance. And they were like, great. So you're in, and then you take acting classes. And for me, it really is about just like, they were very much of anyone can come in. And we do productions every year, but of course you need to audition for those productions. And thank Lord that I did, because my first audition was like, and now I know what not to do in a theater audition.
What happened? Give us the brief story.
It just, you know, I did Rosalind, I think, the one where she's like describing how she
from As You Like It.
She made this guy, As You Like It, and how she made this guy like fall in love with him, and how she like, would, and all this stuff. And I remember just being, like, over the top with it and just not good. And then the director who was auditioning, he was just like, why don't you just sit down and tell us if it's a story. Just tell us a story, and this is the story. And I was like, okay. And then I did, and he was like, great, thank you. And then I walked out, and I was like, well, I'm not getting into that production. But I did, and I had one line. We were doing Taming of the Shrew. And my line was I.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And he was the type of director that would call you every single day at all times of rehearsal, even if you just said one line or were just standing there. Yeah. Which was really intense. But because I've never had any theater experience, being there was like it was a gift from the gods.
Yeah.
I could see how the actors were taking notes, how they were responding, how they would work on Shakespeare text, how they would do, you know, how they managed themselves. So I was just looking at people who were, you know, juniors, seniors, working that out with the director, and that was a freaking great learning.
That's awesome. No, yeah, for sure. So you got into UTEP, you do your training there, and then you decide, what made you decide that you wanted more training? Did you apply to more schools than just Juilliard? Tell us about that decision and ultimately the preparation for those auditions.
So I was in my second year when there was this big fuzz about a Juilliard teacher who was going to come over and teach a Shakespeare for a semester, and she was also going to direct King Lear. And her husband was going to play King Lear, and he was also going to be a teacher, and he was a graduate from Juilliard. And so everybody was like, whoa, you know, this is crazy. And Rutko, that's his name. He was
Say it again, because you cut out a little bit.
Michael Rutko. Michael Rutko, yeah. He's an alum from Juilliard, wonderful actor. And he played King Lear. I auditioned for the play, and I got Cordelia. And so I got to... The name of the director is Jenny Lord, and she's a faculty at Juilliard. And she's a brilliant director. And so I got to work with them for a whole semester, or like quarter section with King Lear and stuff. And then at the end of King Lear, I was in my second year. So she took me aside and she said that she thinks it would be a good idea for me to come to New York and audition for Juilliard and Yale and NYU and all that stuff. And it's really crazy because El Paso, it's such in the corner of nowhere that Juilliard never crossed my mind, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it was never even, not even like, I'm not going to audition because I'm not going to get in. Like, it just never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
It's just something that was so far away and so, like, big for me. And I was like, there's no it never went into my head. And she was like, I think that you should come. I think that you would be a type of student who they would enjoy teaching just because I very intense when it comes to studying. I'm just, like, very perfectionist. It's like, I must do my work. And she was like, I think you should graduate a year early so that you can come to the M.F.A. program as soon as you can. So next year when they audition. And so I was like, I have 2 more years left. Like, how can I put 2 years in 1 year? She was like, you'll figure it out. And I was like, okay, good. So I talked to my advisor at UTEP, and she was like, okay, we're going to make it happen. And so we put 2 years in 1 year, and I had to...
That's amazing.
It was madness.
Wow.
In a great way, you know, because without me realizing, it prepared me for Juilliard, because, like, my whole schedule was full, and it was fall, I was taking, like, 10 classes, and then winter classes, and then spring it was, like, 8, and then summer courses. It was just, all over the place.
Yeah.
And so that allowed me to audition for Juilliard. And yeah, that's how, like, Juilliard came into my radar. But I don't think, if it weren't for that one person who was like, I think that you can do this, I would have never even thought of auditioning for it. Especially when you're just so removed from New York or LA or, like, these big cities where, like, these big names are. And you're just in very small cities who are, like... Because El Paso and Juarez are not known for their theater or art at all.
Right.
It's considered a hobby more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just... She's like, you need to get out of here just so that you can learn, other ways of working and be around theater as much as you can. And so I applied for... And I did apply for Juilliard, Yale, and NYU.
So... And
other smaller programs.
When you applied for those, like, you obviously, got some monologues together. I want to talk about your audition for those. So let's talk about, like, what monologues did you choose? How did you feel about them? How did your auditions go? And, specifically Juilliard, but, you can mention some of the other ones too. Like, I want to hear about your experience auditioning.
So monologues, I started looking at them. So I was going to audition in January, and I started looking at monologues during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, I want as much time as possible to work on this, just because I know me as an actor, and I'm like, I know that I'm going to go through a lot of them before I can, like, find. And it was a process, because it was also this whole thing of like, do I want to do a monologue from a Latin playwright? Do I want to be in Spanish? Like, do I want to show that side, or is it enough for it to be in the resume? Like, it was just this whole crisis thing. And it was very interesting, because when I was, like, I read a bunch of them, and I read a lot of plays, and I just couldn't find really monologues that, like, grabbed me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that I was just grabbing it from, like, I was not thinking of what are the best, where I feel the most comfortable in. I was thinking of it, what are the best monologues that I can get? And that's not how you want to approach that, you know, especially when you want to do auditions. So I found that for me, because if you're looking at for like, what is it's so impersonal, like not and so removed. And so I had to shift that and be like, okay, what am I interested in doing? What part of myself am I interested to show them? And like, I think would like, you know, broadcast who I am as a person, as an actor. And then when I finally narrowed down to like, I picked like 6 that I had. I learned like 5 because they were like, have 4, you know, you're only going to do 2, but don't have other 2 just in case. And then have other 2 just in case.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I had like 7 or something. Like it was just, you know. But you find pieces that you love, and you're like, well, I want this to be around in case I want to use it. Yeah. And it's also like, do you have everything, right? Like you have the love piece, and then you have you're broken up and heartbroken, and you're very happy, and it's like the funny one, and then the dramatic one. Anyway, and I had them, and I was rehearsing with a teacher that I really trust, and then he looked at me, and then he's like, "You're doing this thing where you're getting rid of everything that makes you you." And then I knew exactly what he meant, because I was working so hard at, like, first of all, not showing an accent, and you know, so, and like picking things, because I decided not to go with Latin playwrights. I just decided to go for like, you know, but I was doing this very weird thing where I was just like speaking in a way that was just not how I sounded. It was like the theater voice, you know? Yeah.
And he's like, and you don't have to do that, especially for this types of auditions, because they don't care about the persona that you put on. They care about who you are. And sounding as you is obviously the way to go. And you don't want to present yourself as something that you're not, because the best thing that you're going to be ever is yourself, right? It's like the one thing that you can always do right is just be yourself. And
nobody else can really do that as well as you.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And so I was like, okay, but it's so scary.
Yeah.
Like, auditioning for graduate programs is so scary, because you're not, at least if you're auditioning for a play, you know what they're looking for, or what character you should, like, be. You know, if they're looking for a Rosalind, you know that you want to also pass as a guy, you know, like you can do both. Or if they're looking for Juliet, you know, there's like a specific sort of quality that she has. But when they're looking, who are they looking for? What are they, you know, that's very confusing. It's very scary, because you're auditioning as yourself.
It's a great point.
Like,
it's a great point.
How do you do that? How do you do that? And it's really scary, because, you know, if they say no, then I felt like they were saying no to me as a person. I was like, no, that's really scary. So I ended up deciding to do one where I thought showed like the confidence and like the strength, and one that was like very shy that then transformed into like, fuck you, I don't care about you type of thing. It's Adam Sinkowitz, actually, who I didn't know was a playwright from Juilliard until I was going to do the monologue at showings.
Which, you didn't even know until you were at showings?
I didn't
that he was a
even
Juilliard
know
player?
until I got it, yeah.
So for those listening, Adam Simkowitz is a Juilliard playwright, and he was there when I was there. That's when he studied. We did his plays for the first time, you know, and now he's a faculty member. Yeah, I wasn't cast in those. But yeah, like, so we did 2 playwrights projects, and his plays were featured. I was in some other authors' plays. But anyway, so you did an Adam Simkowitz play, and you didn't know it was a Juilliard playwright until you got to showings, which is the first day of class, for those aren't.
I think, I think
that's
that
awesome.
Was the case. Either it was showings, or it was, or maybe I learned that he was going to be at showings, and I didn't have time to change it. And that's what I was going to do for showings.
So which one was it?
He just like looked at me and like, it's the one where she's
or
in
which
the
play?
Hospital. Pretty Theft.
Pretty Theft. Cool.
And it's the one where she's like talking to her dad in the hospital.
Yeah.
And she goes from being like, this is how my day went, and I know you're probably not listening to me, and fuck yeah, you never listened to me type of thing. I thought it had a lot of color, so I was like, this is great. And so the actual audition process, it was quite intense because I didn't hit send, like the application, submit basically, until like December 31st, which I think it's like the deadline. Because I was, if I submit it, it's like I'm putting myself out there, I'm doing this. And Juilliard was basically my dream school since I've heard of it, but never really, And so, but I did it, and it happened to be that audition. I think it's very smart, especially if you're going to travel, to always schedule your auditions in the same week, just so that you don't go like back and forth all the time. And so Yale, NYU, Juilliard, and I was doing also the URTAs at that point. Don't do the URTAs. URTAs are horrible.
I misunderstood you a little bit. The what?
URTAs. Do you know what those are?
Are they like unifieds?
Yeah, basically like a bunch of schools come together, so you audition in front of those schools, and they're like representatives all over.
Right, and they came to your location?
Yeah, so they gather up, I think it was in this hotel in New York, and you come in and there's like 50 of them sitting down with like notes, but you only have 2 minutes to do 2 monologues, which is ridiculous. And then they have this little bell. And it's just, I just don't think it's enough time to like really, the damn bell. I just don't think it's enough time, because if there's one good thing that we actors have control of, it's our time when we go into a room and like take our time to really just enjoy and do what we love. And that situation doesn't let you do that. You have to like, I don't know, it's very weird. Anyway, Juilliard was my second audition. My first one was NYU, and I thought I was gonna like be really, really nervous. But then there's just like this calm thing that just like goes over you right before you go into the room. That you're like, okay, I'm here. And I think that what really helped me ground myself was just look at the room and see how can I use this room right now for my mom. Like if these are the windows of the hospital, great. Like there's actual windows in the hospital. Like usually, like actually use what's in the room. And I think that really grounds you and puts you in the moment that you're in. And you're just not imagining things that there's no need for you to imagine. And
Love that.
Kind of the same thing happened at Juilliard, but I was a little hectic because I actually was staying in Brooklyn, and it was my first time in New York. Took the wrong train.
Oh no!
Went the wrong direction. Oh yeah, went the wrong direction into Brooklyn, and it was an express train.
Oh okay? My gosh!
Express train. I was hectic, and I was gonna get there in time to have some breakfast, have a coffee. I got there exactly at 9.
Oh.
But Juilliard does this great thing where like they put you in warm-ups with everybody, and you get to talk to, well, no, it's Evan, who's the head of the division. But then you have Richard, it's Kate Wilson, who's our voice faculty, and who else?
Well,
who else was in the room?
A lot of the faculty is there.
A lot of the faculty is there, but there's 2 people who lead the class usually, which is a voice, and Alexander. No, not Alexander.
Is it Mark? Movement?
Is it Mark? Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. I know that there's a voice in there somewhere, because they really help you like go through your thing. And then something that Richard told me in my audition, which I thought it was incredibly helpful and helped me throughout that entire week, is that it's not about what you're performing today, it's what you're working on today. So this is not a finished product, and it's not helpful at all to think of it as a finished product, just so that you don't try to hit marks that you know that you've hit before.
That's great.
Like, what are you working on, and what are you doing right now? And which I thought was really helpful.
That's awesome.
It gets you out of that headspace, yeah. And actually, something that I noticed this year, because once you get into school, you can work auditions. And one thing that I learned this year about Richard Feldman, who I really respect, was that students are supposed to get there like at 7, and the teachers get there like at 8:30 or something to get ready for the auditions. Richard Feldman was in that classroom around 7:30 or 8 a.m. reading every single file of every person in his room. He went through their statements and their resume and their pictures. And I was just really surprised by that. I was like, wow, you were actually taking the time to read who these people are. And so when you come into the room, it feels like he already knows you. And he kind of like, and he's amazing. He knows how to get you out of your head really quickly. But I think that's the type of attention that a lot of faculty at Juilliard put into the audition, because they know how hard it is for actors to do this and
Right.
be brave. And they're very giving and kind, and they tell you this every time, like they really want you to do your best, and they will do anything in their power to help you do your best. And just that dedication of like, I'm going to come early and read every single thing, for me was just mind-blowing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really helpful, because they see you as a person, not as a waste of time.
Yeah, of course. And God knows they could, because thousands of students are auditioning, and, all you have to do in order to audition is just pay the fee. And so you could be horrible, and they could see a lot of not great actors that, they could get jaded by that. But that's really refreshing to know that even still, and Richard's been around doing auditions for decades, and he's still, so that's great.
And one crazy thing about those, if you're auditioning in New York, they put you in a room with like 2,000 people, which can be very overwhelming, but it's a great acting.
You're exaggerating, just
thing.
I'm not 2,000, but yes.
Oh, 200, sorry.
200 makes more sense, yeah.
200.
But it feels like 2,000.
It feels like the energy makes it feel like 2,000.
Yeah.
No, it's like 200 people divided into 2 rooms. But it's really interesting because it can be very overwhelming, because you're like, these are a lot of people. Oh my God. But it can also be really fun, because you're like, let's see what each of them do under pressure. And there's a lot of people who just like mumble, or they do stretches, or they become like the social butterfly, or they just listen to music. So it's just really interesting to look at them.
Yeah, for sure.
But it can be really distracting. So I would say that before you audition, like, know what works for you. How do you center yourself? Because once you get there, it's going to be like so many energies coming at you. So how can you keep yourself in your own bubble without becoming like a zombie, Mm-hmm. They do this thing with practice rooms, which I think it's a great opportunity. Just like go to a practice room and either breathe or go through your piece, or whatever you need to do. But I do think that you do need to be prepared to see a lot of people, mm-hmm. and just know that I don't even know how to. It's like that amount of people should be an opportunity to learn from others, and not a way to shut yourself down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember, because listen, I auditioned in San Francisco. Some of the schools, they travel, and Juilliard goes to New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. Yeah. But same thing, like there's a lot of people there, and there's a lot of different energies coming at you. And meanwhile, you're thinking, look, I'm generally a nice social person. Like, I would want to talk with these people on any other given occasion. But, like, I'm here to do my work, and I got to, like, make sure that me, number one, is taken care of, so that, I don't get too excited, or I don't get too shut down, like, robot style. So, like, what you did in the practice rooms, I went and found, like, a little area, just an area in San Francisco, in the building we were in, where I could like just focus on like, something with my visuals, do a little warm up, and like be in a space. And then when you're back in the waiting room where there's tons of other people, right? You just kind of have to be like relaxed and in your mode, rather than like, necessarily being super susceptible. And again, everybody is different. Some people do vibe off of social interactions, and you should just know yourself and do what you do. I have a question for you specifically about that moment, because obviously this is like the biggest school. It's your dream school, you said. It's a ton of people's dream school. But even not with just Juilliard, any top BFA program that like they dream of going to. How did you did you do anything in particular that helped you balance your nerves with, like, you have these nerves, but then you also want to be authentic. You also want to show them you, but then you're racked with these nerves. Like, did you do a warm-up? Did you just have certain thoughts go through you? Was it a magical moment where you just felt all this calm? Like, how do you deal with that, you know?
I had that magical moment with NYU. I was just very, very calm. But with Juilliard, it was just not happening. And I found for me, we had a community meeting a couple weeks ago. A community meeting is where, like, all the Juilliard drama people come together. And they invited Oscar Isaac to come and talk to us, which was really great. And he said something that applies perfectly to auditions, which is kind of what I did without realizing that I was doing that, was he said, your stakes as an actor need to be very, very low so that your stakes as the character have room to flare up and ignite you and take control over you. So when I was at Juilliard and I was, like, having all this crazy energies and stuff, I decided to go back to reading, because I brought the plays that I was doing the monologues from with me, and I decided to read the moment before and the monologue and like put myself in that situation, so that when I went into the room, I didn't have to do that, put myself there. I was just there. And so I was trying to keep the mentality and energy of the two pieces that I was doing. With,
nice.
Like, putting it into that's how, for me, it helps me center, because it takes me out of, this is Gabii auditioning for Juilliard,
right.
and it turns into, this is Isabella who's asking the king to please kill Angela.
Yeah.
That's a very weird example, but you know what I mean.
No, totally, like, yeah.
This is her trying to talk to her father in the hospital. Like, that, for me, thinking about in character terms is much easier and calming, because I'm not thinking about my own shit. It's just them. And I think that's just, it's really, at least for me, it was really helpful to just be in the character mindset and not worry about how Gabii the actor was going to go through all of this. And then
I agree. Yeah, that's good, because, like, the other thing is, as I know some listeners are thinking, okay, cool, now I'm going to go bring my plays to all the auditions and I'm going to read the moment before. Like, no, what you did is you had a moment where you were like, you just trusted yourself. You're like, it's time to read this moment before, and that just came to you. That's not something you prepared. You obviously had your plays with you and everything, but you weren't, like, preparing to do that. You can't really prepare how you're going to do it, but you do have to listen to yourself. You have to know yourself and do what you think is right in the moment to really get you focused on your work. And I think that's what Oscar was trying to say, was like, keep the stakes on the work and not on, like, you and self-conscious you. Because we all have insecurities, right? Actors put themselves out there in a way that's like, at any moment we can, like, literally just be super insecure or whatever. So especially as an underdeveloped actor or a young actor, where it's like, okay, how do I, like, handle my insecurities if things start to get crazy? Well, we don't have, like, there's no answer, but it's like, trust yourself in the moment and just do, make a choice. Like, you took your books out and you read that. That's super awesome. Me, I went to the, corner and got myself into timeout. Like, and my buddy Amari, who helps a lot of these students here, he talks about breathing and just, some people socialize. It's great. Whatever it is you do, is like, trust yourself, Yeah.
It is the most important thing to do. And actually, one of the things that one of my mentors made me do, which I don't know if it was really helpful, I think it was really helpful, was that if you are in, particularly if you're in a theater program doing your BFA and you're auditioning for an M.F.A. and you have the opportunity to just present your monologues in class in front of people, that can be really helpful, because it can also tell you, like, what am I thinking right before I'm starting this monologue in front of all these people? And it helps you, like, get to know how you can work in a way that you're not thinking about them at all. But I think it's important to just practice being like, okay, I'm in front of people, like, this has happened, so that you get that performance thing out of your mind, because that's something that pops into people's minds when you walk into the room. It's like, now I'm performing.
Yeah.
And that's not where you want to be.
Well, like, let me ask you this. When you are performing, right, and when you're in the audition room, and if you can remember, you know, we're always talking about how to bring you. Like, you want to be doing the best work possible, but even Richard, the, you know, auditor, is like, look, it's not about the performance, it's about what you're working on today. So just work on, you know, so they're always trying to like diffuse the fact that it's like, you don't have to have a perfect performance. Yeah. So if you already know going in, I don't have to have a perfect performance, I just have to bring myself, and I have to like be working. You know, how did you feel like in your audition specifically? How did you bring you?
How did I bring myself?
How did you know that you showed up? How do you know that they saw you? Was it in the piece? Was it in the, you know, interview or something afterwards? Where did you feel like you really were like, this is who I am? Is that a good question? I don't know.
It's a very good question. I think that you should know yourself as a person as much as you know yourself as an actor. So if you know how you can drop in those circumstances really quickly, you know, as an actor, it's really important to also be like, how can I drop in to, like, in who I am, right? And for me, that's me. You know, if I smile and like really smile, I feel me, you know?
Yes.
And for some people, it can be like walking in a certain way or doing something with their hair or their hands, you know, something that makes you be like, yeah, I do this all the time. And like, it centers you. And for me, it's smiling. And so I came to the room, and I think also saying your name, like, you're fucking meant to be there, and owning all the time and being like, this is my name, and this is what I'm going to do, damn it, you know? And so I think that made me really be like, yeah. And those, you know, whatever room, it's like, this is my room, and this is my time. And then I think Richard asked me at one point, because I did my 2 monologues, and then he was like, do you have another piece? And I was like, yeah, I have Julia from Two Gentlemen of Verona, the one where she's tearing up the letter. And then he was like, would you like a piece of paper? And, you know, it's just like me responding, being me, awkward me. I was like, don't mind if I do, you know? Like,
oh my gosh.
Like, just react, you know, the way that you do. And then I had a very similar experience that was not very successful when I finished the Urdes. Because, you know, they put that little bell on you.
Oh my God, the bell.
Thank you so much. I looked at the floor, and I was like, thank you so much. Good night. It was 10 a.m. in the morning.
Good night.
What is that? And then I tried to get out of the room, and then it was one of those hotels rooms where, like, the door blends with the wall.
Oh,
and you have no idea where the hell the door is. And I was just, like, jamming at the wrong door, and I tried to get out for, like, 30 seconds, and we were all just laughing. And I was miserable. But apparently it was great for them, you know, right. Entertainment for them.
Oh my gosh, they're like, yeah, that was worth it.
So I think also seeing everything as an offering and not as a mistake is a great thing. But I don't know, I honestly, I think it is like what makes you feel, even if it's just wearing your favorite piece of clothing, you know, like what is it that makes you feel yourself? I don't know if that's very helpful.
No, it's awesome. You're very helpful, and like clearly we've been talking for 45 minutes now almost. So we can wrap it up. I'm sure we'll have you as a guest again at some point, whether it's another podcast, a video, blog, something. Second year at Juilliard, end of your second year. I can't even believe you have enough energy to talk, you know, for 45 minutes, but. It is an awesome topic, how to get into drama school. We all have been there, and it's a special moment. It's you know, many of us, it's our most important moment in our lives, like up to that point, you know, like by the time we're auditioning for school, that's the most important audition of our lives. So it's cool to hear your story. And I'm trying to think, is there any other lasting thoughts or final thoughts you have for these listeners? I mean, you know who these folks are, you know where their head's at, you know, like what's one last thought you may have for them?
Oh, Lord. I think that wherever you are and wherever you want to audition, I think I've been learning now that it's very important to be kind with yourself, because this is going to be a very, very stressful moment, which, you know, you said it, one of the most important moments of your life, but I think learn to be kind with yourself, because if you're kind with yourself, you learn to love your flaws, and your flaws are going to be the things that make you a great fucking actor.
That's
and so
awesome.
Just embracing those things and not letting them go. I
Man.
think that's a good advice. You should probably work on the things that you need to work on as a person, but you know, learning from yourself as much as you like to learn from other people, because there's a lot to learn from who you are and how you do things, and know that there's worth in that.
100%.
You know.
Yes, that is something that, you know, I'm still working on. I'm still learning all the time. Like every time I approach a new piece, it's like, if I get feedback on it, generally these days, the feedback is, oh, that thing you did in the accident, you know, or that time you forgot your line. That was it. That was hilarious. Yeah. You know, or whatever. Like as I go out for a lot of comedy stuff right now, and it's just like, man, you know what? How can I figure out, just let me bring this to everything? Like, how do I, you know? And so, yes, unique you are the thing. And yeah, if you can learn that that's the thing that you want to craft around, rather than you don't want to like cover that up and put some sort of idea of the craft on top of it. But no, you want to like, that's the centerpiece, that's the sensitive part, that's the nucleus of everything you need to be building around.
Yeah, and also, like, take comfort in knowing that even if you get into school, that's something that you will always be working on. That's something
right.
I'm working on.
Oh my
right
gosh.
Now. Just trust yourself, damn it. Trust yourself. Yeah.
And with that, we will say goodbye. So thank you so much, Gabii. And yeah, I know this is awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to keep collaborating on this topic with you. But have an awesome night and a great, I know you're opening your show tomorrow, so have a great opening.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.